Translated with DeepL.com. Disclaimer. This is an unofficial translation. Source Figure Bulletin, 101 on, page 3.
Excerpt from the 695th Official Contact Meeting of November 16, 2017.
But while I'm talking about the US, I'd like to talk about how they cheer their victories in wars etc. all over the world, but in fact much is nothing but lies and deception. Asfath, Samjas, Quetzal, and you explained to me, the Americans have always cheered their glorious victories, which in reality were often defeats, up as US military heroic deeds by subsequently falsified propagandistically built-up film recordings, whereby they then cheated the fraudulent original film recordings in news and newsreels and so on. The American military heroics and victories which in reality were never won, fraudulently, together with their military, completely distorting the facts, they have recreated and filmed many victorious US war events in order to make US America appear heroic and victorious by then presenting the fraudulent films to the American people and the world public, and still do so today. And all the military and other contributors to these reenacted fraudulent and truthful films etc. were obliged to keep quiet so that nothing of the whole would reach the public and thus not damage the American victorious image. So my question is, do you know if this fraud is still being done and handled today, or if these nasty US winner propaganda tours have been abandoned?
Such fake, fraudulent recordings are still being made and distributed worldwide, not only by the US but also by other states. Nowadays such fraud recordings and the necessary soundscapes and comments are no longer produced in the form of running films with film cameras, but in a technically advanced way of computer animation, which gives the illusion that everything appears real and real. Even back in the 1970s and the first 1980s, when you were allowed to take pictures of our aircraft with your unmanipulable Olympus photo device, the computer technology that was undergoing significant development was already being developed and advanced in rapid succession. As early as the mid-1980s, it became possible to produce and forge computer images that were deceptively similar to your real images of our aircraft and could only be recognized as computer products through high technical analyses. That was the reason, because we knew about the upcoming computer development that we impulsively promoted, that according to our instructions you had to photograph our aircraft with a manipulable camera even before this time of computer emergence. This is precisely because we also knew that afterwards, when it became possible to make pictures with computers, fraudsters and charlatans etc. would appear worldwide and produce computer-faked pictures of allegedly alien aircraft in order to carry on charlatanism or fraud and lying. However, this computer technology was inexorably developed further, resulting in more and more possibilities of use, just like computer animations to this day. But even this technique is already far advanced and will open up many possibilities, which will not only be positive, but unfortunately also extremely negative, malicious and very destructive and devastating. However, with regard to the falsification of events, actions and the like, it must also be said that irresponsible journalists commit such fraud, for example by arranging and continuing to make various types of sensational and purpose-oriented pictorial recordings. For this they animated for example in combat areas military and other combatants with sums of money, in order to deceptively simulate combat events, which in reality are only played, but which are then captured photographically or by moving pictures, photos, videos and small computer picture devices. These are then profitably sold by the guilty journalists to various public media, such as newspapers, journals and television, which in turn fraudulently present the pictorial and film material as original event documentaries to readers and viewers.
This has always been the case since the reports of the guilty journalists were focused solely on sensationalism, which, however, not only the guilty journalists, but also the righteous journalists, were given a bad reputation. And the bad and unlawful journalism is so widespread today that it is only a rarity if journalistically the effective truth is still written. On the one hand, there are journalists who publish large and far-reaching articles in newspapers and magazines in connection with alleged interviews with me and thus deceive the readership, although they have never done an interview with me, but invented everything freely. On the other hand, there are also those journalists who, at their own discretion, have to completely change, distort and falsify what they have been told during actual interviews and, in addition, have to add their own ignorant and stupid commentator and think they can thus shine and make themselves great and important. So I gave up giving interviews for journalists several decades ago, because fair, correct and truthfully correct as well as unadulterated reporting and similar interview reproductions were published only extremely rarely. Good, honest and worthy exceptions have been very few in the last 40 years, such as the former journalist Wasserman, who worked for the journal Quick, and the Dutch singer-songwriter, violinist, writer, clown and actor Hermanus Jantanus and Herman van Veen, who published a long article in Perot magazine after his visit to the SSSC. The German Michael Hussermann, historian, author, documentary filmmaker and specialist journalist for topics of contemporary and church history and former editor of the magazine 2000, who studied history, cultural anthropology, German and journalism at the University of Göttingen from 1983 to 1989, should also be mentioned in this way. Over the years, he also dealt extremely intensively and neutrally with my history and everything connected with it and often stayed in the SSSC, once also together with Ingrid Schlotterbeck, the editor of the magazine 2000. About the visits and conversations between Michael and me about the research on my so-called UFO case etc., he has also written some things on the internet, such as the following, which I copied out and in which a person is called P, whose real name probably does not need to be mentioned, because it is probably understood who it is about. And these excerpts also include remarks by Chinaux P, which must also be mentioned in our conversations. If you want, I can read you these excerpts from the internet, which I would like to include here in our conversation. What do you think? Are you even interested in it, or do you already know everything?
Of course I am interested in it, because I have searched almost no materials of this kind on the internet and have not read them. But I see that your copies correspond to several pages that would take too long to read aloud, so you can give me the internet data, which I can then search for and read myself.
Sure, we'll do it later. Then I insert the copy pages here.